Welcome everyone to the final round of the Rapid between Arvind Chidambaram and Alireza Firouzja. Arvind has the white pieces and opened the game with one e4. Firouzja responded with e5, knight f3, knight c6. We have the Ruy Lopez a6, bishop a4 and knight comes out to f6. And Arvind is thinking for his move. He is currently on 9 points. Firouzja is the leader of the tournament on 11 points. Let's see how things pan out here. A very critical game. Arvind castles it out here. And Firouzja now has a few options. He goes for the closed Ruy Lopez with bishop e7, and which is the most popular move in the position. Rook e1 is played quite often, but Arvind goes for d3. This move is more trending these days than rook e1. b5 played. Bishop comes back to b3 on the long diagonal here. Black goes d6. And now pawn to a3 so that when the knight jumps here, you can preserve your bishop. Black castles. White plays knight to c3. It looks like a very normal position here. But Alireza goes for this very interesting maneuver. Knight b8 with the idea of bringing the knight to d7. a4, striking on the queen side. b4, gaining more space here. Knight jumps to e2. Pawn to c5. And now the knight can sit on the g3 square. He brings his knight on g3. And once the pawn is back on c5, he brings his knight to c6 and bishop g5, pinning the knight so that the d5 square gets slightly weakened and Alireza gets his bishop. If you take, he's happy because there's more control on now d5 and f5 squares. Instead, white goes c3, striking in the center. And Firouzja now plays rook to b8, putting even more pressure down the b file. Arvind takes, pawn takes, and now strikes in the center with d4. Pawn takes pawn. Now look at the simplification that can occur. You take back with this pawn, then you take here, then you take here, then you take here. It's like so many exchanges, and actually Firouzja can do it. He takes it. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes d4, taken. Arvind takes back, pawn takes, and actually Alireza can be super happy at this moment because the position has equalized out of the opening. d5 is an excellent move. Of course, if you push e5, then knight d7 and black is completely fine here. So he gets his rook into the center with rook d1. Rook b4 attacking the queen and also the pawn on a4. And you can see Alireza's time, 17 minutes on the clock. Queen e5 played to attack the pawn on e6 and also to give a check here. And Firouzja now plays queen to d7 defending. He could have also played queen d6, which is a nice move. But queen d7 played. And pawn takes pawn, all is well. Arvind could go knight f5 to put some pressure here, but instead goes knight h5. And now a very safe move is d4, and black should be completely fine. Instead, Firouzja, is going for the rook. He takes on a4, and that is a mistake. It's a big mistake here. He's missed this moment because now Arvind can chop off the pawn on d5. And notice, if you play queen takes, I have knight check and I pick up your queen. If you take with the knight, there's a mate on g7. And he finds it. Arvind finds rook d5. Wow. And suddenly you can look at Alireza Firouzja. He is stunned there. He cannot believe that he made this blunder. Queen g4 played. And this is a big mistake. Because after queen takes e7, you go, let's say, knight h5 here. And now f3, queen c4, rook d1. White has complete control over the position. And rook d8 coming in would be very strong. But it's not so simple now. Queen g4, actually what Alireza is saying, you take here, I'll take here. But Aravindh takes on f6. It's not the best move, but practically a very good try. Bishop takes, knight takes, and you can't take back with the rook because of the back rank issues, so you take with the pawn. And this is exactly what Aravindh is trying for. He is just aiming for the weakened king here. And although the material is equal, this is a tough position for black to defend. Queen e7, and now look at Aravindh there. He's completely zoned in, but he has only 27 seconds, while Firouzja has 5 minutes on the clock. Queen e4 offering a trade, and Aravindh is still very ambitious. He plays queen to d6. He's keeping the pieces on the board. And now rook e8 played, just getting the rook activated down the e file. Rook comes back to d1. It's a safe move here. And now queen to e6 played. Offering a trade. Aravindh denies it. Rook comes to c4, and black is able to somehow coordinate his pieces. I think he has to move his queen now. Somewhere queen b7 played. And the queen goes to c6, offering a queen trade. Well, Aravindh can take the queen, but he decides to keep it on. He goes queen b3. The king moves to the side. King h8. And now pawn to g3 played. He's moved his pawn forward. Pawn to a5. Alireza is like, hey, Aravindh, it's not only you who's trying for a win here. I also have an extra pawn on the queen side here. And now Aravindh is threatening rook d6. Trying to attack here, but rook a4. Attacking the queen. And Aravindh under so much pressure because he's playing on his last few seconds. Queen b2 played. Doesn't want to be losing on time here, and Alireza is known for his amazing blitz skills. Rook e4, what a beautiful move. Not letting white activate his final rook. Also threatening a4. Rook c1 played. Queen comes to d6. Rook d1 attacking the queen, and a couple of quick moves means Aravindh has 20 seconds on the clock. Queen e6 played. And now queen b7. Is his threat rook d7? Well, you always have rook e7 here. So maybe a4 pushes forward. If rook d7, you can take, and black can place his rook behind the pawn. It can get dangerous. So he goes queen a7, stopping the pawn for now. Rook e7 played. Does Aravindh want to take risk with check and then bringing his other rook in? Well, he goes queen a5. King comes up to g7. I love how both players are fighting here so hard. Rook a4 and now queen c4, and black can continue trying. Both sides can continue trying, but queen e5. Alireza makes an error. Now rook a4. You can simply take the pawn. And look at Alireza, they're shaking his head. He's like, what the hell did I do here? And now it's like he's pawn down in this endgame, which shouldn't be a big issue actually. If he can just trade the rooks here. Rook e1. Which is why Aravindh brings the rook to prevent the trade of rooks. Till the time the two rooks are there on the board, there is some hope for white to play for a win. But otherwise, this position with just one rook on the board is a theoretical draw. Rook e5. And you can see Aravindh looks a bit composed. He has more time on the clock. He also has a nice position. Rook comes into e2, attacking here. Rook a3, maybe wants to put the rook here, get the other rook in. Rook f5. Rook comes to f3, finally takes, king takes, and maybe a draw can be the most likely result. But in such positions in rapid chess with 1 minute on the clock, it's also not a bad idea to keep trying. Maybe you have some hopes here. Aravindh plays rook to d4, rook b2, rook a4. He keeps the rook on the 7th rank here, Alireza. And he's placed his rook on b2. And one of the things that you want to do when you're playing such endgames, by the way, rook trade would be bad here. The king and pawn endgame should be lost. Rook a4. Rook e4, offering a trade again. Rook a2. King goes back to g2. And then rook b2. Rook f4. And Alireza is just waiting there, he's waiting on the 7th rank, and Aravindh is thinking, what is the way in which I can make some progress? He plays his pawn to h3. And you know this rule, right? If it's 50 moves rule, once you make a pawn move, the moves are reset. So then it's from that point another 50 moves. So every time Aravindh pushes a pawn, the 50 move rule is gone. How will white make progress? Now comes back to e2, rook b4, h4 played. Rook goes to a4, and now rook e4. I guess Alireza will come back to a2. He knows this is the defensive move. King e3. Finally, Aravindh thinks of a plan which is f3 and g4, I believe. Alireza still waits. But you will see that Aravindh, even if he has a plan, he will play it after making a few rook moves, and then now f3. Pushes the pawn. Rook check, king f4, rook goes back, and now g4. Yes, pawn to g4 played. Takes, pawn takes. And now a little bit of progress, but this position is still a theoretical draw. Although, if you see, Firouzja is a bit shaky here. He's like, okay, Aravindh, I agree, you made some progress. Your pawns look more menacing. Check, king f3, check, king g2. Yes, king f3. It's a check now. King comes back to g2. Yes. Rook a1 played. And now, as Aravindh, how do you make progress is the question. He goes rook f4. Maybe his idea is pawn check. Firouzja's time on the clock is 2 minutes 37 seconds, while Aravindh has 1 minute 7 seconds. Rook f3 offering a trade. Rook a1 played. King g3. Well, one thing that you can see here, by the way, Firouzja is now rook a5. He took a minute on that move. A bit unsure about what to do here. And Aravindh goes rook e3. He's just having a good time there. And I think this is something that that we can all learn from, is how to continue playing in a drawn position and keeping some ideas going, like rook e7 with the idea now of h5. King g5, there is check. Well, I think giving a check makes a lot of sense. He gives a check and you can see Firouzja down to 14 seconds. Another check. I guess he's a bit upset on himself somehow, because he's thinking so long. Rook a7 played. 23 seconds on the clock. h5 check. And now it's clearly a draw. You can go king h6 as well. It's fine. But king f7 is also good. Rook d4. And now maybe rook a5, cutting the king off is fine. Because look, if you go rook a5 and he gives a check, you can go king g8 and this is a draw. But rook b7, he waits there. Aravindh plays rook c4. Rook a7, even waiting here seems fine. Rook c5 played. He's preparing king f5, but there's no way to make progress. Because the moment you go king f5, I'll wait. And then when you come down, I'll start giving you checks. So nothing to worry here for Firouzja. He just should play quickly. He's coming down to 4 seconds. King g7 played. Maybe he's a bit afraid of this h6 move. Rook d5. He's calculating this h6, king f6 line. And he plays rook a7 and loses on time. Oh my goodness. Wow. The way in which Aravindh managed to put Firouzja under pressure is insane. Wow. And with this, Aravindh beats Alireza, the leader of the rapid section, and joins Alireza and Fedosiev at the top as we go into Blitz tomorrow. Aravindh, in his maiden appearance at Grand Chess Tour, is jointly leading after 3 days of rapid. What a guy! What a guy! Hats off to Arvind Chidambaram.